What we're gonna do now is to take our shapefile layer that we have with all those polygons and add some extra data on top of it, a point layer, and carry out some basic operations and basic computations inside QGIS. So let's start. So remember, we have this map of Pittsburgh with the shapefile that we downloaded from the GIS service from Pittsburgh. We added a neighborhood name as well to each of these polygons. Now we're going to bring in some data that we already have for Pittsburgh. So let me open git bash. So I'm going to open up my bash shell here. Let me change to the downloads directory. If you remember, we have a file that is also available on OneDrive, which is this very long name that has all the fires from Pittsburgh from their database. And if you remember, this file has lots of entries that have no, is a raw file, has no latitude and longitude. Right there, there's one that's. So let's remove those with the script that we have. So remember, let me clear the screen. Remember, we do LWK -f, specify the name of the script. The name of the script is remove missing sh, which is in my current directory. Let me show you before I start that. Do that. Let me do an sl -l, any file name that has the extension sh. So there it is. Remove missing that sh. And if you remember, this is a small script that I gave you that explains, and there's a link that explains how it removes the missing latitudes and longitudes without confusing commas inside the fields, the neighborhood field name. So let me clear the screen. That was from a separate video. Let's do an awk -f, and we're gonna run the remove missing sh script, and we're gonna apply this to our A2D file. Let's see what happens if we run it. So this should have no entries that are missing the longitude and latitude. That seems that that's the case. Let's see, let's run it again, and let's redirect the output to something maybe that is called 8d-clean.csv. So now we have a file called 8d.clean.chv. Let's do 8clean.csv, and there it is. Let's count the number of lines. I'm gonna do a wc 8d space 8d dash space hd dash tab, and it will autocomplete the name for me. And let's see, it has 6,541 fire events here. Okay, so let's take this data and load it into QGIS. So I'm gonna go here, and I'm going to select, we're gonna add a layer. I'm gonna add a layer of type, so I'm gonna say layer, add layer. This is an add delimited text layer. We've done this before. We're gonna select the file, and the file that we're gonna pick is 8d-clean. Let's say open. Notice that it immediately recognizes longitude and latitude, and it's correct. The y field, which is up and down, is the latitude, which is what we need. It's a CSV file. Let's add this, and then here we have the, what did we say, the 6,541 dots should be here. Of course, it's very hard to understand what's going on. There's too many dots there. How about if we do this? Let's classify these dots, and let's add some colors to each of these dots. So I'm gonna go to 8d-clean. Gonna go here to properties, right click properties. Let's go to symbology, and in symbology I'm gonna pick categorized. So not what symbol, but categorized, and we're gonna categorize this by incident type description, which is the actual name of the type of fire, either a building fire, a passenger vehicle fire, and so on. So let's see, type description. Let's see if this works. We're gonna do random colors. Let's classify them, and indeed there we have it. All the fires, outside equipment fire, natural vegetation fire, or other, all the categories from our file are there. Let's hit apply, and now indeed notice that in the back now we have a nice map with all those colors. There's still lots of dots. There's 6,000 of them. So if I zoom in, notice that there's lots of them around the city. For this, for different years, I believe it's starting in 2013. So still hard to understand what's going on. So how about if instead of displaying like that, Here are all of our categories. How about if we ask QGIS to count by neighborhood how many of these incidents have occurred? So to do that, what we're gonna do is let's remove, or let's hide the neighborhood layer right now. Notice that we only have, right now we only have our 6,000 dots there. And let's go and ask GIS to carry out an operation for us. So we're gonna go to the menu vector. We're gonna go to the analysis tool one here, and we're gonna ask QGIS to count the points in Polygons. So what points are we talking about? Let me show you the 8D-clean layer that we created. Let's look at the properties, information. Notice that the geometry of this layer is of type point, which it contains points. So let's do that, and we're gonna ask GIS then to do an analysis of count the points in Polygon. And the polygons layer is our neighborhood layer. That's our neighborhood layer. We could also use, notice, our parks and green sport that we created before, but let's use the neighborhoods layer. And the points are going to be from our 8D clean layer, our point layer. Let's run it and let's see what happens. Okay, so we're actually find some performance message there. We don't care about that. Let me close this. Let me show you. I forgot to show you something. Let me just go back to our counts in Polygon. Notice that the field name that was added to our table is called num points, and stands for number of points. So if I go to our 8D, I go to our count layer, excuse me, and I show the open attribute table, notice here, for our count layer, that is a new layer. Notice that it's the same as before, but all the way in the end, there's one more field called num points. So now num points, there's the number of fires of any kind that have occurred in per neighborhood. And here we have the layer, but the data is not there. We'll have to go into actually the table. So why don't we go into the count layer, click properties, and we're going to add labels. And let's add a label, and the label is going to be a single label per polygon. And that layer should come from which field? Should come from the last field of our table called number of points, or num points. And let's hit apply and let's see what happens. And there you have it. Now let's click OK. And notice that now we have our previous neighborhood layer, which is now duplicated in the count layer. And we have added the count of every fire per neighborhood. Okay, that's it for the operations between shapefiles and point layers.